Aurobindo says that a real teacher is a presence more than a teaching. Today we are going to talk about the great world teacher Swami Vivekananda. There's a story about his life very close to my heart, which really tells us what a beautiful presence he was. Swamiji never dealt with money. So one day when he was traveling by train, although his devotees could have bought him and happily bought him first class tickets, he chose to travel ordinarily without money or food with him. He was dressed in his ochre robes, and there was a merchant in the same compartment with him who for some reason hated sannyasis and thought sannyasis were parasites on society. So he kept passing comments on sannyasis looking at Swami Vivekananda. Finally, the train halted at a station where people tended to get off to eat and get refreshments. So they halted over there. So both Swamiji and the merchant got off, and the merchant made an elaborate gesture of laying out his mat, taking out his food, drinking his water, and made comments to the effect that I earn my money, I have good food to eat, sannyasis should find a way to earn their own money, etc. And just as he was saying all this, a man came running to Swamiji and said, Swamiji, Swamiji, I've got food for you. And Swamiji said, my dear man, I don't know anyone here. You're probably looking for somebody else. And the man said, no, Swamiji, I have a little snack and tea shop a little away from here. And I had shut shop in the afternoon and was resting when I saw Ramji waking me up and telling me to bring food for you. And thanks to you, I got darshan of my Ramji. So he made Swamiji sit and gave him all the food that he wanted, much to the absolute amazement of the merchant. So Swamiji's life and this anecdote from his life tells us what Sri Aurobindo says, that he who is the master of universes is a slave to love. For his devotee, he will make anything happen. And we saw this in this endearing story called Commissioned by Ramji. The man who brought Swami Vivekananda food was indeed commissioned by Ramji. Naren was born to a pious couple, Bhuvaneshwari and Vishwanath Datta, on 12th January 1863. At birth, he was named Bireshwar after Lord Shiva. He was also called Bile with fondness. Many sadhus and sannyasins and beggars too came to the house every day for food or money. Bile used to open the door and give them anything that was handy, including costly things. One day in exasperation, his mother locked him up in a room upstairs. Bile opened a trunk in the room, took out some saris and gave them through the window to an emaciated beggar who came by. Bile always wanted to test the truth of what he was told. He could not believe anything just because someone said it was true. One day an old man, bothered by the noise Bile and his friends made, swinging from branches of trees, went and told them, don't you know that tree is haunted? The ghost will catch you by the neck. As soon as the man went back, Bile again began to climb the tree. When his friends tried to hold him back, Bile laughed. He said, don't be a donkey. How many times have I climbed this tree? You know that if a ghost lived in it, he would have caught me long ago. When Bile grew up, he always told people, have no fear. Ask questions and find out the truth for yourself. Never believe anything unless you know it is true. Be strong and fearless. In times of danger, Billy always kept a cool head and did his duty. There was a sports club near Billy's house where the boys used to go for physical exercises. Once they started to set up a swing. The main pole was very heavy. The boys tried to lift it, but they could not. It was too heavy for them. There were some people standing on the roadside watching the boys. Among them was an English sailor. When he saw that the boys could not lift the heavy pole, he wanted to help them. "Boys," he said, "I'll help you lift that pole." He was a big, strong man. Along with the boys, he started to lift the pole. Suddenly, the pole slipped out of their hands. As it fell, it hit the sailor on the head. He fell down with a big cut on his forehead. It was bleeding badly. The sailor lay on the ground very still. The boys thought he was dead. They were very frightened and most of them ran away. But Billy and 3 of his friends did not run away. Billy tore a piece of cloth from his dhoti and quickly bandaged the sailor's head with it. He poured some water on his face and began to fan him. After a while, the sailor opened his eyes. He was not dead at all. The boys carried him to a schoolhouse which was nearby. A doctor came and treated him. Billy and his friends nursed the sailor until he was well. They were glad that they had had the courage to stand by the man who had tried to help them. In course of time, Billy was given the name Narendranath, shortened to Naren. If we want to learn anything, we need a teacher, a guide, who knows all about the things we want to learn. So if anyone wants to know about God, he has to find someone who already knows about him, someone who has seen him. About this time, Naren began to search for such a spiritual teacher. He would go to all the religious people he met and ask them just one question. "Sir," he would say, "have you seen God?" But not one of them could say that he had seen God. One day, one of Naren's neighbors asked him to go and sing at his house. He had as his honored guest the great teacher Sri Ramakrishna. This member wanted Naren to sing for Ramakrishna because Naren sang so beautifully. Sri Ramakrishna was very pleased with the songs Naren sang. He liked Naren too, and he asked him to go to the Dakshineshwar temple where he lived and sing for him there. That was the very first meeting between Sri Ramakrishna and Narendranath. After the meeting, Narendra wondered if Sri Ramakrishna was a real teacher. People said that Sri Ramakrishna had seen God. Narendra decided that he would go to Sri Ramakrishna and ask him if he had seen God. One day Naren went to Dakshineshwar to see Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna was very happy to see him. He brought him sweets and fed Naren as if he were a small child. He was like a loving mother to him. Suddenly Naren asked the question he had asked so many other religious men, the question he had come to ask. "Sir," he said, "have you seen God?" Sri Ramakrishna replied, "Oh yes, indeed I have." Naren looked at Ramakrishna in astonishment. "I see him as clearly as I see you, added Sri Ramakrishna. One can see him and talk with him as I do with you. Naren was surprised at his answer and he was delighted. He listened carefully to all that Sri Ramakrishna said. This is the spiritual teacher I've been searching for, he thought to himself. So Naren became his disciple. He was indeed very happy. He used to go to Dakshineshwar very often and hear Sri Ramakrishna talk about God. About this time, a very sad thing happened. Naren's father died. The family was now very poor. Sometimes they did not even have enough to eat. Naren felt very sad and he tried very hard to get a job. He was a brilliant student, he had a BA degree, but still he could not find any work. He walked from one office to another, but he could not get work. He thought, what will become of my mother, sisters and brothers if I cannot earn some money? One day, he decided to seek the help of Sri Ramakrishna, his guru. He told Sri Ramakrishna that you have to help me out. And Sri Ramakrishna said, I am a person who doesn't deal with money. Today is Tuesday. You go to the Kali temple and pray to the mother directly. She is sure to hear your cry. Narendra at that time did not really believe in idol worship, but he was desperate. So he went to the Kali temple. He stood before the idol, but before he could say anything, the Divine Mother came alive. With his spiritual vision, he saw the beauty of the Divine Mother, and with tears in his eyes, he could only ask for more devotion, for renunciation. And in this state, he came out and he met Ramakrishna. And Ramakrishna asked him, what, Naren, did you get your wish? And Naren said, oh my God, I completely forgot. So Ramakrishna said, okay, go back and ask. Second time he went back, again the Divine Mother came alive. And Naren could ask of nothing but devotion and to give himself to her. He came out and this repeated a third time. Third time, Ramakrishna Paramahansa teasingly asked Naren that, silly boy, again you didn't ask. And this time Naren broke into a smile. He saw that this was a whole game his guru had played with him to bring him to the truth of the Divine Mother even through idol worship. And Ramakrishna blessed him that now onwards you will never lack, you will always have enough. So from this story we see that although Naren was very capable, very intelligent, very qualified, he didn't get a job. It had nothing to do with his inadequacy. Very often when we don't get what we want, we feel small and inadequate. But sometimes failures lead to a truer success than what immediate success would have got us. And there's a meaning in every curve and line, as Sri Aurobindo tells us. Sri Aurobindo also tells us in his epic poem Savitri that the supreme diplomat, who is God, makes our fall a means for greater rise. So next time we don't get what we want, we mustn't feel dejected. We must be patient and wait. Life always has a beautiful plan for us if we are just patient in our low moments. A sannyasin always takes a new name. Naren's new name was Swami Vivekananda. A respectful way of referring to him is Swamiji. So now we shall refer to him as Swamiji. Swamiji made up his mind to go on a long journey. He wanted to see how the people of India lived. India is a big country, it's a home to many different kinds of people. So he set out on foot, taking with him only a change of clothing, a kamandalu or a water pot, a few books and a big staff. He walked through villages and towns, he slept under trees, he ate whatever was given to him. Sometimes he stayed in the huts of sweepers, and sometimes he was the guest of kings. Once at Varanasi, as Swamiji was coming out of a temple of Mother Durga, he was surrounded by a large number of chattering monkeys. They seemed to be threatening him. Swamiji did not want them to catch hold of him, so he started to run. But the monkeys chased him. An old sannyasin was there watching those monkeys. He called out to Swamiji, "Stop, face the brutes." Swamiji stopped. He turned around and faced the monkeys. At once they ran away. Many years later, Swamiji said, "If you ever feel afraid of anything, turn around and face it. Never think of running away." Swamiji traveled through forests and jungles and then went up to the snow-covered Himalayas. He visited the beautiful temples and sacred places of pilgrimage. Then he went to the west of India and walked through the hot deserts there. Swamiji went to Bombay, from Bombay to Bangalore, then to Cochin and Madurai, and then to Rameshwaram. Wherever he went, he saw the misery of poor people. Once he was sitting on a famous rock at Kanyakumari. Swamiji went into deep meditation. It was then that he found out what should be done to make India great again. Sitting on the last bit of Indian rock, he said, "I hit upon a plan. I hit upon a plan." Swamiji swam back to the shore. He then went to Madras. There he had many disciples. He told them that in his travels he had found that India was asleep. India was like a person who had been asleep for hundreds of years. She had to be awakened. Swamiji now explained the plan he had thought of. He would go away from India. He would see what the people in other countries were doing. They had faith in themselves, so they could do anything. Also, he would tell them all about India. "Our people have lost faith in themselves," said Swamiji sadly. "I will bring back that faith to them. Now I go. But when I return, I shall awaken the sleeping millions of my people." A parliament of religions was to be held in America in the city of Chicago. Leaders of all the different religions of the world were going to speak. "I will go there," Swamiji said. "I will tell them about the ancient religions of India. I will tell them what I know, and I will learn from them the things they know." Chicago was many thousands of miles away. To get there, money was needed. Swamiji's disciples in Madras collected money, and the Raja of Khetri, one of his disciples, also gave him much help. But Swamiji said he was not yet ready to go. He said, "I shall not go until I know that God wants me to go. If it is God's plan, I shall go, otherwise not." One day, Swamiji was standing on the seashore looking at the beautiful sea and thinking about his plan. Then he saw a marvelous thing. In a vision, he saw Sri Ramakrishna walking on the sea. He was asking Swamiji by signs to follow him. Now Swamiji knew that it was his duty to go to America. It was the wish of Sri Ramakrishna. It was on 31st May 1893 that Swami Vivekananda sailed for America. Swamiji watched the shores of India until they faded into the distance. Mother India faded from his sight, but she stayed in his heart, and he never ceased to serve her. A big exhibition was being held in Chicago. The Parliament of Religions was part of that, but it was to start some weeks later. Swamiji went to tell the organizers that he would speak at the Parliament. What a surprise and disappointment. "Everything has been settled," said the man in charge. "It's too late. No more people will be allowed to speak." Swamiji did not know what to do. Should he go back to India? But what about his plan for which he had come so many thousands of miles? It was about 2 months before the Parliament would begin. It cost a lot of money to live in Chicago. Swamiji did not have so much money with him. Someone told him to go to another city, Boston. There it would not cost so much, so he went to Boston, stayed there for a while, then he went back to Chicago. The evening he arrived in Chicago, Swamiji had nowhere to stay. In India, he would have slept on the railway platform, but in America, that was not allowed. Swamiji saw some empty packing cases near the railway station. He climbed into one of them and spent the night there. Swamiji had had nothing to eat that day. He was feeling very hungry. But he did not feel sorry for himself. He was always thinking of the poor people of his country. How much more they were suffering, he thought. The next morning, Swamiji crawled out of the packing case. He was feeling stiff from sitting in the box all night, and now he was more hungry than ever. But he had work to do. In Boston, Swamiji had met a famous man. His name was Professor John Henry Wright of the Harvard University. Professor Wright guided him to a person in Chicago who would help him to participate in the Parliament of Religions. But Swamiji lost the address when he reached Chicago. He was sitting on the streets of Chicago crestfallen when a lady came over to Swamiji and asked him if he had come to Chicago for the Parliament of Religions. She invited him into her house and treated him as an honored guest. Her name was Mrs. Hale. She and her husband George Hale became Swamiji's great friends and helped him to participate in the Parliament of Religions. The Parliament of Religions began on 11 September 1893. It was held in the large hall called the Hall of Columbus. On the platform sat the speakers. There were more than 60 of them, and they had come from different countries in the world. Swamiji sat in the first row. About 7,000 American men and women sat in the hall. They had come to hear these famous men speak about their religions. One after the other they spoke. Swamiji felt a little frightened. Never before in his life had he spoken before such a big crowd of people. At last he got up, walked to the front of the platform. Swamiji was dressed in an orange-colored robe. He had a big yellow turban on his head. His face shone as if it was full of light. In his mind, he bowed down to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. He asked for her blessings. Then Swamiji stepped forward and said, "Sisters and brothers of America." At once the listeners burst into a storm of applause. They clapped their hands again and again. They would not stop. They were very happy to be spoken to in that friendly way by a man who lived on the other side of the world. they went on clapping. It seemed they would never stop. Swamiji stood there in his orange robe, looking at this huge crowd of 7,000 people. They were cheering for him. Swamiji had not prepared a speech as the other speakers had done. He spoke from his heart. To him, all people were like his brothers and sisters. He loved all people, no matter what country they belonged or what religion they followed. Swamiji's words were powerful because they were the words of a man of God. That is what touched the hearts of the people there. The people felt that he was right. Overnight, Swami Vivekananda became a celebrity and received invitations from all over to bring the light of India to the people of the West. Finally, having accomplished his mission, Swami Vivekananda returned to India. He formed the Ramakrishna Mission in 1897. It is a worldwide movement which works in areas like education, philanthropy, religious studies, and spirituality. It is dedicated to the well-being of all humans. The headquarters of the Ramakrishna Mission is the Belur Mutt in West Bengal. Its motto is Atmano Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya Cha, for one's own salvation and for the welfare of the world. In other words, one has to work for one's own salvation and the welfare of the world. The great sage Ramakrishna once had a vision. He saw 7 stars in the sky, which people say are really 7 great sages. These sages are always in deep prayer. They are meditating on God. So Sri Ramakrishna saw these 7 sages in meditation, and he saw a lovely little boy approach one of the sages. Throwing his arms around the sage's neck, he tried to make the sage open his eyes and said to him, "I am going. You will have to go with me." He meant to earth. The sage agreed. Ramakrishna Paramahansa said that the sage who agreed to come down to earth in his vision was none other than Swami Vivekananda. And the little boy who urged him to come was none other than Ramakrishna. So this great sage who Ramakrishna Paramahansa saw in his vision, Swami Vivekananda, agreed to come down to earth to uplift mankind. And his whole life is a testimony of how diligently he did this. Books written by Swami Vivekananda. The first book written by him is Raja Yoga. In this book, he has discussed the eightfold path of yoga and explained the aphorisms, the Yoga Sutras of Maharishi Patanjali, adapted for a Western audience. He has also written a book called Karma Yoga, which is on the path of action, building character with karma and the ideals of karma yoga. Swamiji delivered lectures in New York City in 1895. His followers hired Joseph Goodwin, a professional stenographer, to transcribe the lectures, which gave form to the book Karma Yoga. Joseph Goodwin later became a devotee of Swami Vivekananda. He wrote a book called Gyan Yoga. In this, he has discussed various concepts of Vedanta philosophy like Maya, Brahma, Atma, bondage and freedom. He has also written a book called Bhakti Yoga, which teaches love as a spiritual discipline. He explains the types of bhakti, supreme renunciation, philosophy of mantra, and ideals of image worship. Another book of his is Practical Vedanta, which is a compilation of his lectures delivered in London. It teaches us how to imbibe the philosophy of Vedanta and Upanishads and bring it into day-to-day life. Swami Vivekananda also wrote a book called My India, the India Eternal. In this book, Swami Vivekananda has put forward the spirituality of India as its identity and its strength. Through spirituality alone, the country has survived through many attempts of foreigners who ruled her. This book is a vision of the immortal and eternal greatness of India. Finally, he wrote a book called My Master. This is a book combined from 2 lectures delivered by Swami Vivekananda in New York and England in 1901 about his spiritual master Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He described his master's biography and discussed different aspects of his character. He has given a tribute to his master with the words, "If there has ever been a word of truth, a word of spirituality that I have spoken anywhere in the world, I owe it to my master. Only the mistakes are mine." Swami Vivekananda gave very wonderful and powerful teachings to the world. He taught that the soul of man is more powerful than anything. This means that all the powers lie within us. He says all the powers of the universe are already ours. It is we who have put our hands before our eyes and cry that it is dark. He taught that service to man is service to God. He taught this by his own example. He laid his life inch by inch for the spiritual upliftment of humanity. In his words, "They alone live who live for others. The rest are more dead than alive." His teaching of Vedanta was that the world is one. Civilization will be complete in the world when India gives to the world the marvels of its spirituality and in exchange receives from the world the marvels of modern science. He worked hard to achieve this. In the process, he became instrumental in uniting the world by becoming a bridge between the East and the West of the world. He preached to mankind their divinity and how to make it manifest in every movement of life. He put forward the idea of potential divinity of the soul. With Swami Vivekananda's concept of potential divinity of the soul prevents ethical and moral degradation, divinizes human relationships and makes life meaningful and worth living. Swamiji has laid the foundation of spiritual humanism. He said there can be no salvation if one has faith in God outside, but no faith in oneself. The real atheist is one who does not believe in himself. Such was the wonderful life, teachings and works of the great son of India, Swami Vivekananda. Namaste.